Yo, what's up, guys? It's Juice. Welcome to week one of Juice Camp, where I introduce you to my training philosophy and hopefully teach you that you can transform your lives by improving your fitness. So, to kind of start things off, I want to give you a roadmap of everything that's going to be covered in this video so you have an idea of what you're getting into, right? So, first, I want to teach you, or at least, give you some reasons as to why you should care about fitness. Because if you don't care about it, you're not going to do it, right? Then we're going to talk about how we can set realistic expectations. Once we've sort of discovered how to set those expectations, we're going to dive into a framework that I use to develop in the various aspects of fitness that I've identified, kind of all nicely encapsulated by, the cliche SAFE acronym. And then we're going to go over how to give your journey direction, right? How do you take control of your fitness journey? How do you set goals? How do you identify your targets? That kind of thing. Then we're going to cover, how do you monitor your progress, which will segue into how do you adjust your targets when you hit obstacles that you can't overcome, right? They're outside of your control. You inevitably face setbacks. How do you persist and how do you adapt, right? And then finally, just gonna summarize everything with really imparting the importance of taking ownership of the journey, um, because like your fitness is, you have all the agency, right? Like nobody can force you to be a fit person unless you're joining the military or I mean you can fabricate scenarios where other people can force you to be fit, but for the vast majority of us, we have free will. So um, you're not going to do it if you aren't in control and you're not really driving the bus. So I think that's kind of a good place to stop. So now that we kind of got that out of the way, I'm going to talk to you guys, why should you care about fitness? And I thought about this question for a good bit of time. And at first, when I was kind of making this presentation, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to tell them about how fitness improves your health outcomes and it improves your quality of life and it gives you higher confidence and you get better social treatment. People will treat you better. It instills discipline, all these things. Um, and then I started thinking, like, I don't know if that's really going to resonate with everyone. I don't, all those individual things are not ubiquitously attractive to everyone, right? And so then I kind of went back and I started thinking, all right, so what's one thing that everyone values that is very scarce, it's very extremely difficult to get, um, and is impacted by fitness? And I did some thinking and I came up with something that I'm pretty happy with, right? So I thought of only three things really in the world that can do this one thing that everybody wants, um, that you can't buy. So pause right now, go in the comments, let me know what that one thing is and what those three derivatives of that one thing are. Cool. So now to spoil it, right? Fitness is one of the only three things in the world that can actually help you to live longer, right? It doesn't matter what you care about, what your values are. Everybody wants to live longer. Um, and the primary mechanism by which fitness does this is by improving your resilience, right? How are you able to physically and mentally bounce back from injury, obstacles, stress, bad situations, all those things? Fitness is kind of like a testing chamber that slowly over time improves your resiliency. For those of you that, maybe a substantial amount of you that are depressed or in bad mental spaces and thinking, well, I don't want to live longer, fitness is good for you too, right? Because exercise distracts your mind. So, like, suffering in a gym will take your mind off of the suffering that's going on in your life. So if the suffering that's going on in your life is worse than whatever you have to put up with to be in the gym, then I think it just makes sense that you would want to be a more fit person. And I challenge you, right? If you don't believe me, you think I'm bullshitting, reach out to me. I'll coach you for free. And if by, the end of a year, I work with you for a year, and you can acknowledge to yourself that you're in a better spot mentally or physically by the end of that year, then I'll do whatever you want. If you want my life savings, I'll give you my life savings. If you want me to give you one of my arms, one of my limbs, and you're in need of that, I'll donate an arm or a limb to you, because that's how deeply I really believe in the power of fitness. Right? Fitness is kind of a silver bullet, right? Like, we're taught there's no such thing as a silver bullet. There's not one thing that's going to cure everything. Um, but I don't necessarily agree. I think fitness comes as close as you can possibly get to a silver bullet. So now that we've kind of established that we care about fitness, right? We've established why fitness should be important. We kind of have to set expectations, right? And there are three things that I think should really constrain your expectations, right? First is your starting point. What is your fitness background? This is going to affect the initial rate of progress and your ability to weather the storm, right? If you're somebody that doesn't have a sports background, that doesn't have a gym background, um, I wouldn't prescribe you a super intense regimen, because it's unlikely that you're going to be able to sustain that for a long period of time on the first go around, right? Um, Conversely, if you don't have a sports background, your initial rate of progress will likely be pretty fast, probably faster than people that are coming from sports backgrounds, depending on other parameters. But just speaking in generalities, your initial rate of progress might actually be faster than people that are coming from um, experience in various capacities. Second, time frame, right? This is microscopic and macroscopic. Um, Time constraints on how long you can dedicate and budget to actually, exercising. This is how long you can stick with a workout plan. This is how long you can handle an intense workout, right? Like, at various stages, time frames are going to be major constraints um, that will dictate your, you know, end term expectations. But I don't believe in end term expectations, because fitness is a journey. A misconception is that, at least when I talk to people, it's like they come to me and they're like, hey, I want to have a six pack, or I want to have really big arms. What do I need to do that? Say, all right, go to the gym, do some curls. What's your starting point? What are you eating? Blah 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 blah. They put in the work. They see the progress, and they're like, okay, I'm just gonna stop. And then they lose it, right? They don't lose everything, but they lose it, and then it kind of feeds into a negative feedback loop, because they're sat there thinking, I invested all this energy, all this time, all this mental and physical bandwidth, and at the end of the day, I stopped, and I don't even get to keep it, right? Like, it's not like money, where it's like you save money every day. If you stop saving money, you're still going to have all that money that you saved. Fitness is a little bit different. The money that you're saving is discipline, right? Because your physical state is transient. If you're not pushing the envelope, then things are going to atrophy, things are going to regress. That's just nature, right? You can't beat nature. But nature is pretty cool, because if you've gotten to, if you've progressed up to a certain point, and then you kind of not fall asleep at the wheel, but you kind of give some slack in the reins, getting back to that point is a lot faster, a lot easier, and you already have cultivated the discipline and the habits that will sustain you beyond that point. So that's the trade-off, right? And then finally, the other huge constraint is your personal behavioral tendencies, right? Some red flags, things that you know about yourself. You are probably the only person that knows yourself best. Unless, like, you think your therapist knows you better, or your parents, or your siblings, and like you're delusional, so you don't have an objective view your behaviors and how they impact your ability to achieve and manifest the things that you want in life. But your behavioral tendencies are going to constrain your expectations at the end of the day, right? For me, I have an extreme appetite. I can put down 4 or 5 plates of food at dinner. I'm only eating one meal a day, so it's not like I'm eating 3 meals of 4 or 5 plates of food, but it's still a good amount of food. And like an hour and a half later, I'll still have cravings for stuff. So that kind of gluttonous behavioral tendency is something that I've been actively managing and looking for creative ways to circumnavigate, right? So first it started when I wasn't really paying attention to diet. It was like, you know, I'm just eating whatever because I'm trying to gain mass, and now I'm getting a little fat, and something has to give, right? So then I switched what kinds of foods I was eating, right? So if you eat less calorically dense food, you can have more like you can eat a larger volume of food, and it will be less calories than something that's deep fried coming out of McDonald's or Burger King, right? So that's one of the things. But then the trade off was like, oh, this isn't really tasting good. So it became an experiment in how do I find food that is not calorically dense that also tastes good. Once I nailed that, it was like, okay, I'm seeing the changes in my physique. I'm feeling better. How do I incorporate this into my snacking, right? Because sometimes you have snacking and you just cave, right? You eat whatever's in sight because you're hungry, and hunger is this primal. I don't think even the word emotion does it justice. This primal impulse that is extremely difficult to fight. It's a survival impulse, right? So how do I kind of tame this survival impulse? And that meant I literally had to change all the foods that were around me. Like I can't have Oreos, I can't have cookies, I can't have candy. Candy, I go crazy. Like I'm like a crackhead. If there's a bowl of candy, it's gonna be gone in 2 days. Doesn't matter how big it is, because candy is crack to me. Um, so changing my environment, all those things helped. Were ways that I explored to navigate getting around having extreme hunger and craving things. Um, yeah, so I think this segues nicely into how we set goals for fitness and how we give direction, right? We kind of talked about things that will constrain our goals. Um, and if we are aware of those things and we plan and strategize for those things, then we can set realistic goals and ultimately be happy with the progress that we're making, right? So, how do we give direction to our journey? How do we set goals that are smart, right? Specific, quantifiable. Quantifiable things are much easier to one, analyze, diagnose, prognose, and adjust, right? So, specific, measurable. Can it be tracked? Is this tractable? Well, how will I know once I've achieved sufficient um, progress in this dimension? When do I know it's time to switch my goal, right? All these things will be impacted by how measurable your goals are. Actionable. Are you actually able to take action to achieve this goal? Or is this goal going to be more dependent on actions from other people or outside agents that you have no control over, right? Then realistic. I think we've already covered realistic because we've gone over constraints, right? Reality constrains the goals that we can make, and so if we know what those constraints are, our goals are going to be realistic and also time bound. We talked about how time frames, um, well, actually, time bound is important, right? Because if we set deadlines, um, that can actually be used as motivation to kind of keep the pedal to the metal, um, sort of in contrast to having a time frame that's too tight or too long. Time frames can really play and are powerful tools to influence the speed at which we're kind of progressing, right? We can use it to modulate how fast or how intensely we're working, or we need to work, right? So I think all this boils down to in damn, I'm gonna cut that out. All of this boils down into how we kind of give direction to our journey, right? So the main question I would ask anybody that's looking to get started, looking to make progress, is what function do you want your fitness to serve, right? Are you going to play sports? If so, you're going to need a balanced approach. You're going to be needing to develop in a pretty well-rounded manner, depending on what sport it is, right? Depending on what attributes make you a better, you know, athlete. Do you want to be more conventionally attractive, right? Um, Convention says that people that are slimmer, that have more muscle tone, are more attractive. So I would talk to you about how we could set up an anabolic approach, right? How do we gain muscle? How do we lose fat? Um, how do we get our diet right so that everything's kind of working in unison? Do you want to be strong, right? Do you want to just be able to lift heavy shit, move heavy shit? That's cool. I would tell you, eat a shit ton of food, lift heavy ass weight, and sleep a lot. Um, that's simple. Do you want to be big? That means you're gonna have to dedicate a lot of time to killing your muscles, right? You need to really break them down so they can build back up stronger. So if you want to be big, that's going to require a whole lot of discipline, maybe even more discipline than some of these other goals would require, depending on your level of commitment. And then I think something kind of overarching, kind of this umbrella that should contain everything is like throw out the idea of wanting a dream physique. And by that I mean like don't find somebody whose physique you like and be like, I want to look like that person. Because that is just a self-fulfilling prophecy of failure, because you're never going to look like that person. You can only look like yourself, right? So instead, we're going to keep the locus internal. We're going to be focusing on how do I improve what I already have, right? As opposed to how do I get that? There's a nuance there. And to do that, we're going to be specific. We're going to focus on one or two things, one or two outcomes that we want to change about the current physique, which is easier said than done, right? A lot of times, even these one or two specific things will require a whole host of interventions or parameters that you kind of have to modulate. So, even though we want to get as specific and quantify things as best as we can, we know that that's going to be a tall order. So from the outset, we want to just identify one or two things, one or two goals for your physique, for your fitness, for anything in that physical sense that we want to be working on. And I think another thing that I'll kind of just throw out there that I don't know how realistic it is for you guys is like, if you struggle with comparing yourself to other people's, delete social media. Just delete it for a year. Give it a try. Don't delete YouTube, because then you can't get my videos. But seriously, delete Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, all that shit. I haven't used it. I don't know. Friends, people in my social circles come to me with problems or interactions or things that kind of happen in those spaces, um, and it like, to me it feels like me going to like my friend and complaining about how I lost in a video game, and like showing them that it impacted me for days and days and days. Like, all this stuff is virtual, um, but I guess there could be an argument that just with the prevalence and the predominance of activity on these I guess of the internet, and then also of social media, maybe it isn't so much a virtual environment. Maybe it is becoming a pseudo reality, right? But that's kind of a thought path that I want to go down maybe a little bit later. So I'll just kind of come back to the main point, which is get rid of social media. That'll make it just a whole lot easier for you to keep your locus internal. So here is the SAFE framework that I developed. I'm sure other people have made frameworks using the acronym SAFE because SAFE is a short word that has letters that you can fit pretty much anything, any idea into, right? So in this case, we're talking about strength, agility, flexibility, and endurance as components of fitness that are going to be your targets that you're going to be modulating and optimizing your training towards as a function of, or as inputs to the function of you know whatever your goal is, right? So I've also broken them down into subcategories. So for strength, right, you have power. This is how much force, basically how explosive can you be. So how much force can you output in the shortest amount of time. If you know physics, it's the integral of force times time with a derivative with respect to time, I think, or something like that. It's been a minute, but it's just how explosive can you be, right? So training wise, this is going to be fast concentric movements. Anytime when your muscle is contracting, um, that's the concentric portion of the exercise, and anytime when your muscle is lengthening, that's the eccentric. So to train your explosivity, you're going to want slow eccentrics, fast concentrics. Um, some tangible like exercise ideas are box jumps, broad jumps, med ball slams, and then you can actually adjust the movement pattern of, like, if you're in the gym and you're working on bench press, you can adjust the movement pattern itself to target a more um, power focused development, right? So if you really focus on exploding up and slow on the way down, that's going to develop power, and you can kind of replicate that for the other types of exercise, pretty much any exercise really. Then the other component of strength is max force, right? How much absolute strength do you have? How much weight can you lift? How much weight can you squat? This is going to take the form of standard progressive overload training. So squatting, benching, deadlifting, rowing, all those things, you can progressively overload them, do more weight, do more reps with more weight, and all that stuff is going to help you to be able to be more absolutely strong, right? Then we have agility, and I've broken it down into two components. One, acceleration, which is looking at how quickly you're able to change direction. So acceleration as change in speed, but also change in direction. Training wise, this is going to be you're going to be training directional oscillation, so moving from one state to another, and then you can also do this loaded, so like with weights, just to add resistance, right? So footwork drills, I take a lot of inspiration from like football, boxing, footwork drills. I'm sure there are tons of other sports that I've neglected, but those are kind of the two primary ones that come to my mind that I actually incorporate in my workouts. Jumping rope. You could do like side to side jump, like jumping side to side while you're skipping, or back and forth. All those kinds of things help with acceleration. Then you have velocity, right? This is just your maximum speed. How fast can you do this movement? Training wise, it's just going to be max effort repetition. So you're just going to repeatedly go as fast as you can over and over, and you're going to get faster. So sustained max effort, sprints, whatever cardio you do. If you're a swimmer, sprints, you just got to do it. It's one of those things you just kind of got to do it to get better at it. Then we go into flexibility, right? We're looking at mobility, which is your ability to move under and not under loads in various orientations. And so we train this by incorporating static and dynamic stretching, and then also putting emphasis on loading various movements at various stages in the movement, introducing load, right? And that will kind of play into stability, so I'll leave that there. Tangible exercises include dead hangs, lunges, pigeon stretching, 90-90, which is a cool stretch that I love. What else? You can do 90-degree arm on the wall, bring your chest forward. That all those kinds of things will help you with mobility. Also, like orientations of your grip. Like if you're doing a dead hang in a supinated grip, that's gonna work your lats. It's gonna stretch your lats a whole lot more than dead hanging in a pronated grip, just by virtue of how supinating your arms pulls your shoulders in and stretches the muscle over here. Um, so all those things kind of come into play. The next component of flexibility is stability. This is unbalanced stabilization. So any exercise where you're unbalanced and you're trying to balance in an unbalanced situation. What does that look like? That seems kind of weird now that I'm saying it. Your ability to maintain body posture when various loads and forces are applied unevenly to your body. I think I'm going to go with that. Exercise examples, right? This is sports. This is hiking. If you ever seen like the Indian club swinging, that's really good for training stability. You can even do like your traditional weightlifting exercises, like your traditional compounds, um, with dumbbells, but like isolating only one side or um, uneven weight. So like one side has more weight than the other. If you're doing a barbell bench, you put two plates on one side, one plate on the other side, and you're keeping the bar even. That's going to work all those small stabilization muscles. Um, and also another kind of positive externality from that is that your core oftentimes is going to be developed as because your core is basically the belt that keeps everything together, stable, right? So by when you train stability, you're also most of the time going to be training core as well. Um, Endurance, you have your ability to endure loads, sustained output of force over time. So this is going to be training isometrics, maintaining tension in your muscles in contracted positions. So pausing your squats, your bench, your deadlift, pausing any kind of movement where your body's under load and your muscles are experiencing tension. Pausing and just maintaining that tension for as long as possible is going to train your muscular endurance. And then the other component is sustained agility, right? And we train this through prolonged steady and non-steady state cardio. So this can be HIIT training, this can be steady state training, but anything that's getting your heart rate up and kind of falls in line with what you conventionally think of as cardiovascular exercises. So like running on a treadmill, swimming, biking, rowing, what's the one where you go like the elliptical, doing the stairmaster, all those things. Training on all those things will improve your cardiovascular endurance. And then in that final column, I have frequencies for all of them, and that's just frequencies for me. It's arbitrary, right? It's going to depend on what your goals are. So it's not a one size fits all prescription. Next, we're going to talk about how do we assess the current state of our goals. And I've kind of built in this goal-minded approach. So I think it would be overkill to like dedicate time to hitting each one of these 8 points. But basically, if you're record keeping, you can take stock of your progress. You know what your goals are. You can evaluate, am I satisfied with my progress at this point, at this current point? How much more progress will I need to make in order to be satisfied before I move on to the next goal? Once you've done that, getting feedback from other people, coaches, friends, people that see you, that are able to give you other perspectives on your physique or your fitness levels, people that I guess you could be doing all this stuff on your own, but that would be kind of difficult. So that I guess that's another thing that I would say is that you want to involve as many people in this lifestyle of being physically active as possible, because the more social the activity is, the easier it is to go through with the suffering, if that makes sense. That's not saying like if you're waking up and going for a run by yourself that that's not sustainable at all. Actually, that's what I do. Um, but I think having introducing a social component to um, any kind of new habit or routine is only going to make it easier to do because you almost have an obligation not just to yourself but also to somebody else, um, and so you kind of feel the weight of that responsibility a little bit more strongly. Then you've decided how much progress you've made. You've talked to other people. You've gotten knowledge, wisdom from them, and then it's all about evaluating your options. Right? Do I think my game plan is correct, and I just kind of need to amp up the intensity, do more, or do I think I need to actually change my game plan and switch the activities up? Um, and then the final component that I'll really harp on is celebrating your successes, right? This is something that I personally struggle with is, you know, rewarding myself for being disciplined. I think it's a lot easier, or I have a lot easier time using negative reinforcement to like punish bad behavior. Um, and that's not a catch-all. That doesn't work all the time. So using positive and negative reinforcement in tandem is going to be the best path to making this journey and also just getting to that first goal sustainable and as enjoyable as possible, right? So that looks like, if you fall off the wagon, you miss a workout. Sometimes, like in the past, I would be so pissed off that I'd be like, "Fuck it, I'm not gonna work out. I missed the time slot that I had allocated for this workout. I'm not going to work out for the rest of the day. I let it impact other obligations that I had during the day. It's like, man, I missed this low hanging fruit. I can't even think about doing anything else because I'm so pissed off that I missed this." Um, and, that could be constrained to within the day, or that could stretch on and impact, days from then. Oh, I missed the gym. Now it's going to be hard for me to go to the gym tomorrow because I'm gonna be losing conditioning, or and those days stack up, right? And you go a week without going to the gym, and it's like, oh, now I don't want to go to the gym because one, I'm not gonna be able to do the routine that I've built up to, and two, it's gonna be so hard to even get through a routine. Like I'm deconditioned. I'm gonna feel like shit. All these things kind of go on in your head, um, but they're not the real you. Like the you that set this goal for self improvement and fitness is the you that should take precedence over all that background noise, right? And so, carrot and the stick, right? Showing the carrot can get you out of that negative headspace. Oh, once I satisfy this goal, I'm going to, I don't know, treat myself to, uh, I don't know, a day trip somewhere, or I'm gonna watch my favorite TV show, or if you're not a TV person, do some activity that is meaningful for you but requires a significant time commitment. It's not something that you do, you know, every day, and it's something that you can look forward to and kind of keep you going, right? Um, I think that's a really powerful method of making sure that you stay on track. Um, but I've harped on this for too long, so let's get on, right? And we've kind of covered this too, is like how you overcome setbacks, which are inevitable, right? Like nothing's going to be perfect ever. Um, so it's important to be adaptable and adjusting your targets, changing your goals, figuring out if you need to do more or less of something, um, or do something new, um, are all thought processes that will be engaged when you're dealing with setbacks. I think the one thing to focus on here is just be positive. Like it's easy to say be positive, but seriously, um, try to frame everything in as positive a perspective as you can, because even if it feels like you're lying to yourself, um, it still kind of programs your subconscious. So like it's still like even when you're not consciously thinking of being positive, just the presence of conscious positivity will influence your subconscious. And I'd love to make another video on that. So that's, I'm going to go back once I post this video and identify all those points that I want to devote more time to that I think would be really rewarding. So that's a note for me. Next, how do we take ownership, right? Ownership is going to be like taking ownership of your fitness journey is the only way that you can make this a way of life, right? Like if you do not have agency or you try to hand off agency to other people like coaches, friends, family, other people. So I guess this actually directly contrasts with what I was saying earlier about introducing a social dynamic. But like if you introduce a social dynamic and you put all the weight on that dynamic as opposed to, you know, you, uh, then things kind of aren't as sustainable. So I kind of want to frame this in your guys' mind as you're driving this bus. You decide how far you go. You decide how fast you go. You can have lots of people sitting on the bus with you, um, talking, going to the same place, right? But they may get off, right? And they may get off at different points. But you're still the driver. So you still have your destination and you're still going. So you shouldn't let your route be affected by the passengers that are getting on and off the bus. And then also, just take stock of things that resonate with you along the way. That's really the only way to make things enjoyable. If you can't find anything that you like about fitness, it's going to be hard to subscribe to a routine, right? So if you have like a strength goal that you would love to hit, like, I want to bench 3 plates, or I don't know, I want to be able to run a 6-minute mile or a 5-minute mile, whatever I don't know what the time standards are, but whatever. I guess for people that care about their level of competency in an activity, that can oftentimes be the thing that like motivates you and resonates with you, kind of like on an emotional level. Or it may just be like, I like going to the gym because it puts me in a good headspace and it's meditative and it helps me de-stress from stuff that I'm encountering during the day. There are lots of different angles that you can take, but I would really stress the importance of finding elements of fitness and the journey that resonate with you, and that would just make things so much easier. So thank you guys for sticking with me to the end if you have. Would love to hear all your comments, thoughts about this training philosophy, thoughts about my approach, suggestions, comments, concerns. Also, if you're interested in coaching, I mentioned in the beginning, I kind of threw down an ultimatum. Like, if you don't think that fitness is going to have a measurable impact on your life in a positive way, after 1 year of training, hit me up. I'm willing to coach you for free. I think I extend that to all of you guys that stuck with it to the end. If you're interested in coaching, reach out to me. Depending on how much demand there is, it'll be free or it won't be free, right? Because I only have so much time in the day to dedicate to this. So if there aren't many people interested in it, I'll coach whoever is for free, and it'll just be kind of a journey that is sort of a little bit more intimate in a smaller group. But if there's a lot of demand, then first come, first serve. Get in quick. Get your free coaching before I have to start charging for it. But yeah, so shoot me an email, contact me, leave a comment. All of those are good ways of reaching me. If you are interested in coaching, or you have comments about the video, or comments in general, I'd love to kind of build an active community that is engaging with each other and then also with me. Like nobody's commenting on these videos except for my man Usam. But I digress. love to get a discussion going. So thanks again for sticking around. I hope this was kind of a good introduction to my training philosophy, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Stay juicy.